Welcome back to Entrepreneurial Shades of Grey. I'm Danny Dowles here with my co-host, Miss Chelsea Sayasan. And today we're going to be talking about something, Chelsea, that I think a lot of business owners deal with, but there's not a lot of conversation around it. So policies, boundaries, and etiquette. And I'm so excited because we have someone super fun in the studio to chat with this about.
Right, super fun and super beautiful. We have Miss Esther Lewis with us today. Thank you so much for being with us.
Hi. Oh, it's a pleasure. It was awesome. Just a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, super excited. So I love sitting in your chair. And as a matter of fact, that's when we kind of sparked the ideas for this specific episode. So she was making me fabulous one day, and we got to talking about all the things and that we face sometimes as entrepreneurs. And girl, we could have talked and talked and talked, and from everything from how to professionally say no,
Right.
to setting boundaries, to just all the uncomfortable conversations that somebody could have, customer service, all the things. So you've done some amazing work. You've worked with big brands,
Huge. Yes.
celebrities, as well as everyday people.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about just how you got into being a licensed esthetician, and then we're going to kind of dive into some of these uncomfortable gray area topics.
Well, first off, thank you both for having me on here, and then also to be able to share the information that I have that I've learned in the past, to then maybe change the narrative for the future for ones, And so how I became a licensed esthetician, I used to work for, I could say the Spritzer Girl. I was a nice, beautiful little employee at the fragrance counter in Dillard's. And so as you transition, fragrance is just the beginning part of cosmetics. And I always shared with the manager who hired me at that moment, like, you know what, one day I want to work for a cosmetic brand. Like I'm a firm believer, especially if you have a business, that you are your walking business card, your representation, your appearance, all of that. So I just transitioned from fragrance into Lancôme, a luxury cosmetic company, and then I also worked for Chanel, also a luxury cosmetic company, and then I landed at MAC Cosmetics, and for 10 plus years I was working for them, and then also a retail manager for one of the stores. And the beautiful part of working for all these companies, they're huge on skincare. There is, my motto for sure as a licensed esthetician is that you have to have a great platform for makeup to lay. And part of that is the foundation, being the health of your skin. And I just grew interested in all the things because a lot of times when people look at these cosmetic companies, they immediately think makeup and they forget the skincare aspect. And so for myself, I just went furthermore in education, and then I got my license in aesthetics. Technically, as a professional makeup artist, you should be a licensed cosmetologist or a licensed esthetician. Licensed cosmetologists, they pretty much cover everything: hair, nails, beauty, all the things, barbering. Whereas estheticians, our sole focus is skincare and the health of the skin. We are the step before a dermatologist. So if we can avoid you going to the dermatologist, great. If we cannot, and it's out of the scope of our practice, we send you on. But I have worked with a lot of dermatologists around the Gulf Coast, if anything, with my clients who, go to a dermatologist. And honestly, I hold the clients accountable to their regimen that the dermatologist shared with them, and then to ensure that they're in their best skincare health. And as I was, a lot of people know me because of my clientele from MAC Cosmetics, because everybody would come to the MAC counter, get their makeup done. So I will say my loyalty and clientele came from that, because for so long, myself and some other, stamped, virtued, seasoned artists, a lot of people knew us. I would see everybody every day. So when I left MAC and became full entrepreneurship with my business as Esther Lewis Artistry and Aesthetics, it's ELA for short. Yeah. I just want to continue that service experience, because a lot of that loyalty came from their experience with myself and my staff. So at that point, I knew that I had to go, especially extracting myself from a cosmetic brand. Because when you're working for a beauty brand, licensure really is with them. So you are able to do certain things because the overhead is with them. But when you extract yourself and you're not with a company, and you don't have that licensure, technically you should be operating licensed. Mm-hmm. And so I knew I had to gain one of those licensures for myself if I wanted to pursue it professionally. And a lot of these connections and networks that I've been a part of, VH1, Good Morning America, a lot of them are clients who are high-profile celebrities who said, hey, I don't want anybody but her. Mm-hmm. And so I've got contracted in with that. Some did after the contracted me in for other projects. So I'm thankful for that because it's part of my, appearance, result, experience with, conversation, network, and resourcing. So that was how I kept the connections with the different networks that think of me. In good old Mobile, Alabama, going to D.C. I had a project when everything was happening in the beginning of the year with airplanes crashing and everything like that. We paused. But I'm working on a project right now that I have an NDA that I can't expose, but it's a movie in D.C. So I will fly up to D.C. when we resume in a couple months.
So I know that when people go to like a Mac counter,
Yeah.
they expect to pay what it cost.
Right.
Have you experienced that when you broke away to do your own business, that you get those requests to do things for a price that is discounted, or people don't want to treat you the same way as they would if they went to a counter? And if you do, like, how do you deal with that?
So that transition wasn't as difficult for me. And I say that because I did have a few who weren't used to that price gap. Because at the moment, so for instance, back in the day, you would have to pay $60 or $65 to get your makeup done, but it would be in product. So you get your makeup done for your special event and you purchase $60 or more of product. So my price is triple that. Separating from the counter. And a lot of times, I think if I was going to scale it out of 100%, 97% were okay with that price gap because they knew the experience and result that they were going to receive with me. The other 3%, it was a culture shock because they were like, well, I went to the counter, you did for that. But at that point, it separated their thought process that I'm not with MAC Cosmetics anymore. It is truly ELA. And part of that is you get more of an experience, more of that luxury time, more of that high-profile intimacy, making everyday women feel like a celebrity on their own.
And you do that. When I come see you, I really feel like the vibe, the aesthetic, and just the one-on-one treatment, it's all that, and it's worth it for sure.
Well, I think too, specifically in what you do, right? When you go to these places and you pay for the product, and,
Right.
and this is just a nice little happy that comes with it. What they don't realize is when they want to come to you, now that you've started your own business, the difference is you've started your own business.
Right.
You're
Right.
having to pay for the chair that they sit in, the space that they're in, the product that you're putting on their face, and your time, which is the most important too. So for anyone who is ever nervous about doing that, me
Right.
as a customer, especially in this world, I'm like, you are so valuable to me, and I value your time. So, I understand the world we live in. Things are expensive, but you just have to choose what you want to pay for, and if it's valuable to you.
Honestly, and that's the key market that I think a lot of people forget. So, of course, a lot of us beauty are professional makeup artists. You follow different other makeup artists on social media, and there was one recently that we were just all laughing as professionals because it was the take of, does it take all that for a makeup artist? People don't understand as far as like the product that you have to purchase and spend, like you were sharing, those beautiful taxes now
Right.
as they cross those borders. It has increased, and it is a lot. It's actually taxing on the mental because what you could have done at wholesale bulk, you're also doubling the fee of purchasing that. And so thankfully, I'm able to still keep my price range at the same, but it comes with a lot because a lot of people do not understand behind the scenes of what it takes. So, for instance, I think the day that I serviced you, I had classes all day that I was teaching. So I have mentees underneath me getting their license to be an esthetician because they want to focus on beauty. My sole goal as a brand is to pass on that legacy, regardless if it's my own family or somebody else who's underneath me, to keep the train growing and going, for doing it correctly. There are a lot of people who admire me, and you share, like myself and some other artists who are like, how did you get there? I speak to Blue Cliff, Remington, just students in cosmetology school or aesthetics program of my whole storyline, and I would call it my testimony. And I tell them, be consistent in your now because you may not like what you're doing, but it's going to prepare you for your later. And because of my faith in God, I also realized too, like, if I wasn't a good steward of my back in the day, of what I had during the time I was working maybe 2 to 3 jobs, I remember being a manager at Aeropostale, aka Aeropostale, and I wouldn't know what leadership looked like and be able to transition at MAC Cosmetics at that moment if I didn't have that leadership role then, and then being in MAC, I always will say that till probably my last breath. MAC is a huge part after God and my parents of why my work ethic and how I, present myself within my business, because they had a great training that you can not only use in business but also in personal life. Because I take my business very seriously, and I also realize that people are not used to professionalism. Mm-hmm. You're used to somebody being very talented, very popular, where the wind blows, that's where they go, you know? And so it's funny when I, put a policy down or share with them and reaffirm my policy, it could be a culture shock, and they, sometimes they have their lips flicked up. And, but I always share with them any policy and procedure that I will give you, I stand by for myself as well.
Yeah, it protects them as well as you, because the lines get blurred sometimes because you're such a personable person and people see you as a friend.
Right.
And sometimes people will test those boundaries. And like you said, when you put those policies in place, it's already understood.
Right.
You already know what's going to happen if you have to cancel unexpectedly. We already know if it's a no-show, that kind of thing. So how crucial would you say these policies are, and what are some things that you feel like every entrepreneur should probably have in their policies up front?
They're crucial because it keeps it organized. I'm a person, I realize as I've gotten older, I'm 35 now. I turned 35 a couple weeks ago, and I've seen things more and more by the day. There are ones who strive and want to see organization, but I feel like once that organization is placed on their lap, then it shouldn't. The rules should change. It's very important because if you want to see results, if you want your service experience to be the best, having those guidelines will help streamline all of the negativity and all the things that are going to be chaos, especially if it's written out for you. So, for myself, even with my friends who are close friends to me, thank goodness I have no friends who ever want a discount or want for me to change a policy because they're my friend. Yeah. I will wholeheartedly say all my friends respect me in my business. They pay that full price that the next person would pay. But I think it's so great to see that they support me in that manner. And when they are referring me, or if there's a client who refers me, they always share with the person that they're referring, like, hey, this one, she's about her business. She loves people, but she's about her business. And also get ready for that experience because you're going to have a time. Because for what I do, you sit in a chair, think about getting pampered with your nails, your hair, your makeup. These are things that are comforting to the everyday woman to make them feel good. But my sight is to ensure that you all know who you are before that makeup is applied on you. That is my mantra. Like, I'm just polishing the surface. You truly already had that existing beauty, and if you don't know, let me tell you about it.
I think that, especially in the service industry, I think it's not a bad idea to put in your policies a right to refuse service. Like if somebody is abusive or if they're just
entitled.
Yes, that part. And we kind of talked about that a little bit about the customer is not always right. Okay? So there's etiquette that we hold ourselves to, but also the customer needs to hold themselves to some etiquette too when it comes to expecting entrepreneurs and business owners to service them properly.
Yes, great point, because with policy and procedures, if in the event, I always share with ones the etiquette part of it is there should be boundaries. A lot of times clients or customers, consumers, because technically we're all consumers in some form or matter. We consume somehow. So if you're as a professional providing a service for myself, when I'm out and whatever service that I'm seeking for, I always like to see how the professional, the business owner treats myself and experience. Even if it's a commercial, a chain, whatever that looks like, I always like to see what that looks like if they are very popular or even if they're small business. And I do feel as though that for some, the policies and procedures that they, forecast and share, they don't stand by. And that is why some clients and consumers who come for a purchase, service, or good, they already have their defense up because they don't know what they're about to walk into. I have many people who refer me all day long. I have the question when a consumer comes in, a client comes in, like, hey, do I have to bring my own makeup? I'm like, no, you don't. As a professional, and because I'm talking about what I do as a licensed esthetician, I offer skincare services and advanced skincare treatments. But on the other side, mainly, I would say like 75% of my business is beauty and artistry. And the other 25% would be skincare when I offer those services. I get it all the time. Like, should I bring in my makeup? Do you provide this? As a professional, and I always tell them, like, the only time you need to bring anything in is if a dermatologist said, hey, this is the cream that you need to have on your face when it comes to skincare prep. Or they're very rare, but there are medicated makeup, products. If you have to solely use that, then sure. But if not, as a licensed esthetician, I do have all skincare for all clients, and then I have makeup for all textures of the skin. And because I'm well-versed in that, there's no need to worry. So a lot of times I will get that, hey, do you have my color? And then a lot of times, too, some don't know I'm a multicultural artist. Like, I do not just service one family of complexion. There's not one person that could surprise me, because being a manager for Met Cosmetics and the leadership that I've had in the past, especially with luxury brands like Lancôme and Chanel, I actually had to service majority of that demographic was, a Caucasian and also a lighter to medium complexion. So a lot of times people, take a moment to see if that's the case, but I tell them, look at my portfolio. My portfolio shows it for itself. And when you understand the skin like myself, you know what kind of products to place on the person that you have in front of you. And so I think for a consumer, sometimes there's not even boundaries. Like, I'll get messages at the heat of the night. 2, 3 in the morning.
No. So
2, 3 in the morning. 2, 3 in the morning.
Let's be crystal clear. We have to establish those boundaries at the beginning of our relationship so that people understand that there are boundaries.
Right.
Because the industry that we're in,
right,
like with being people's marketing reps, sometimes, not all the time, I have amazing clients, but sometimes, especially with entrepreneurs, we do a lot of the things at night, after hours.
Yeah.
And so even when I was in entrepreneurship, I had to remind myself that people who do 9 to 5s, they're not on these hours, but reaching out, in those times of nights and mornings, like, I have to establish, don't respond. Sometimes I can't respond. Sometimes it's a conversation, because how you set the boundary can actually shift the tone of the relationship sometimes. So it's a very delicate dance or a balance sometimes that you gotta
I'll sometimes leave the message open, because I cannot.
You leave them on red?
Yeah, the reason why, but it's also to train the mind. So when I leave them on red and I open the message, come 7, 8 o'clock in the next morning, hi, I received your message. So you know that I saw it, but you also should know that I'm not going to answer at that moment. A lot of times, too, it's the, hey, direct message, and it's all over my platforms, is not something that I like or what I want to see when, handling a, business transaction and also an inquiry. I always redirect them to that site.
Yeah.
I'm paying for that site.
Right.
Please redirect yourself to the site. And sometimes, for some cases, yes, it's very minimal, but I also will let them know, like, I need actually for you all to put that inquiry on the site, because it's for me, it's for business purposes, for tracking, A lot of times people don't understand what all comes with the business and what you have to do, especially in the state of Alabama. There are so many licenses that we have to have if you're selling a good or if you're providing a service, that they tax us quarterly. There are some states that don't do it, but Alabama does not play at all. And part of that is, I want you to follow the rules when inquiring. I need for that to be on file even if you do not book. It's funny, though, because a lot of them like, so I have to go to the site? Yes, you have to go to the site. Yeah. And for myself, you won't see a calendar. You won't see pricing, because I offer so many services. It's really just for you to put your request in, because tomorrow I could be in Vegas.
Right.
Today I could be in Gulf Shores. I travel so much. So if I was ever to put a calendar out, they would be confused.
Yeah.
Right.
So I like to have kind of like that ownership part of that hand when one's inquire, because I need to know what you're wanting, and then I can narrate from there. But some don't know those boundaries. But then also you have business owners who don't know boundaries either.
Yeah.
That makes it hard for them.
You mentioned, just for a lot of local business owners, it seems like you just have such a success story from taking your local artwork and going on a national stage, as you just mentioned. For you personally, what has that process been like? How did you do that? And then what advice would you have for other maybe small business entrepreneurs who really want to travel the country and do something like you're doing or do something different?
Great question. I would say going back to that loyalty from the customers that I had at Mac, my name spreaded like wildfire. And going into entrepreneurship is very scary. It's not for everybody. It is not. You actually work 10 times harder.
You do.
10 times harder underneath.
And 10 times longer.
10 times longer and harder, yes. And I mean, for some in larger cities, it is that one connect and then boom, they're super popular and now they're traveling with that celebrity. For myself, it was truly a mandate of, you're going where? This is the person that you need to go to. There are people, other celebrities who I did not even know their name, that referred my name to a celebrity that was in my chair, and I had to fake the funk like I knew him, and I didn't. But aftermath, I Googled and I researched. I'm like, how did this person know me? But then I'm looking at mutual friends. It's just so crazy how they're connected. And I will say what has gotten me to my point now, it was referrals and referrals and referrals and just being consistent. There were celebrities who I could not do, and their agents wanted me to move my schedule around to ensure that I can service them. And I said, no, I have integrity. Like my everyday clients and also my high profile and celebrity clients, yes, they make up my business, but if I didn't have that integrity and I just shut down shop just for one celebrity for one time who's not even in the city, what does that look like for me in a reflection of who I am as a person just to get a one-hit wonder kind of thing? And that's just not it. And so I passed on some of the celebrity clients to other friends who I are well respect in the industry, who were like, thank you, like that's huge. Sometimes people would just be like, I can't do it, and then just leave it at that. No, there is enough room for everybody. And because of my faith, I will say if it landed one time, it's going to land again. And I have not missed a beat. I honestly was scared when I left, a company that I was making into like a 12-year mark and was technically my identity, I was that Mac girl, so I was like, how's this going to look? And a lot of people were like, Esther, you'll make it. But there was a time when, as I transitioned off, even though I look back, I really have not missed a beat, and I'm thankful for it. But there were some dead spaces that people share all the time, like, we'll support, but when you go on by yourself, you really see who really supports you. And so I'm thankful for that. I will say in this city, sometimes I call it bandwagoning, just because somebody becomes popular or somebody did something famous that they like, now you're the greatest. And I've received that, like, oh, she's so great. My loyals were like, she was great back in the day, but you know what? And I always like to share with them, like, no, I'm just a squirrel in the forest, grabbing my acorns, okay? I truly am humbled to be where I'm at, but it's not because I did this high-profile client or I did this movie or whichever that makes me that. It was the integrity, the service, how people feel in the chair, and reminding them who they are, because some people that sit in the chair, my moment in my ministry with my business is I could be the only God they see at that moment. A lot of light, a lot of, encouragement, because people go through so much mentally every single day. Somebody can sit in my chair and be really on their last rocket. And if I can change that smile, I would like to do that.
So good.
Yeah, it is. I love, too, that you mentioned that entrepreneurship is scary. That's one of those things that, a lot of people don't really go into how terrifying it can feel sometimes. And sometimes we do have to, I don't want to say fake it, because it's in us.
Right.
It's in you. You couldn't pull it off if it weren't in you.
Right.
But to be able to push through and face the fear and the anxiety and do it anyway. Even if I don't do it perfectly, even if I don't have all the answers, like that's a big part of it that I don't think is talked about a lot.
Yeah, it's being present. It's about being present in your moment. It's almost like when you walk into a job and you're going through family issues. When you walk in, especially in the industry that I'm in, beauty and skincare is $1 billion business now.
Yeah.
it's no longer being a engineer, lawyer, nurse, and whomever, whatever career that you're in is the only big bucks. Like, there are millionaires, billionaires in the industry, in the beauty and skincare. And so I always think, like, for example, the best example for what you just shared was when my father passed away back in 2021, I was devastated. Part of my business is ELA because my mom, she was a breast cancer patient and she passed when I was 16. And so our dad was like a rock hard hero because we came here from New York. My parents were going to retire. And part of that was for them to live their retirement life. But my father could not be in that house alone, what they built. And so as I went to college and he went, back to New York, I remember him, just all the things that he would encourage me as far as how they raised us. I always remember, like, hey, I don't want my hard work to be in vain. And not only that, I was just always reminding myself to do the things that our parents taught us to do, and then also to make them proud from looking over us, kind of thing. And when my father passed away, it was a big blow for us and our family, my sisters and I, because, he was our our rock hard. We saw a man love God, love his family, love his wife, and then now he's gone, so now it kind of feels cold, And part of that, I remember the day after, like, I had a client, I didn't cancel. I knew I had to go back to New York, for the funeral and prepare and help my sisters as we were preparing for arrangements. And I had a smile on my face. She did not even know until the end. She didn't know until the end, but I knew that a lot of people don't understand what you go through as a provider, but still having to show up, that makes a difference. And given the fact that, it was definitely a devastating time, I understood too, like, I have a job to do. And I know everybody, there's no shade to anybody who cancels or whatever, whenever tragic things happen, because things do really happen. But I just remember just being encouraged that, really there was just the Lord holding me down, because I couldn't imagine the fact, looking back, like, I don't know how I made it. I don't know how I made it. I think I was still in shock too. But I also think that what you go through behind closed doors and somebody you're servicing, if you're going to be there, in the most forward way, it's not their problem technically. They paid for a service. This is a service that you are providing for them. You got to put a smile on your face. I understand that not everybody, so hear me say this, not everybody.
So mature, by the way. So mature. Yes.
I really, thank you. I know it's not easy for some. Like, I remember just literally crying behind my eyes, but no tears flew out. But she was like, what do you mean your father just passed away? Why are you here? Because everybody knew how much I loved my dad, like, loved my dad. And so for me to always say stories about my dad, and then for her to find out, like, later on, I was like, well, she was asking about the next appointment that we had. I was like, yeah. I was like, well, I'll be in New York. She's like, oh, yeah, you're going to New York. And I'm like, yeah, but not for happy circumstances. And then we ended up talking about it. And then I remember her praying with me, and, it was just so encouraging, because I know the strength was nothing but God. To be present in that moment for somebody who was actually going on an interview on a network. It was on ABC. So I was just like, yay. But
That's
it's a lot.
So beautifully, just to your heart, just as a human, not as a business owner, not as a brand ambassador, but just as a person. And when you were talking about foundations earlier, it was just with your skincare.
Right.
But, like, that applies to life.
Yeah.
And the fact that you have that foundation of just pure sweetness, integrity, character, so much so that you think so much about your client who has this big opportunity that you don't want to inconvenience that for them. Because I'm quite sure, yes, it would have been an inconvenience, but, like, she's like, you're here, your father just passed away.
Right.
It just speaks beautifully to who you are.
Thank you. I just want everybody, my biggest thing, nobody really ever sees me mad. Like, if I am flushed or upset, anytime I get upset, it's really because I don't like to see people treated wrong. That's just, I sometimes I'm like, God, why did you give me that? Because I empathize with so many people, so I know that I am truly walking in my calling and my gift, because when somebody sits in the chair, I just want you to feel great. Like, I just want you to feel like, yes, you are a queen. Like, yes, you matter. You think about everyday moms, you think about everyday wives, you think about, I just have, a beautiful, beautiful niece and a dog, Name Mufasa. Okay, who's
Oh,
a child?
I love that.
Mufasa is just a trip. He's a trip. But I think about ones who have everyday responsibilities. Like, so for myself, I think about the things that I have in my household as a single woman, like what I have to deal with. Mm-hmm. But I also think about the moms who sit in my chairs, doctors, lawyers, nurses, everyday women, about whatever they're taking care of. They forget about themselves. A lot of times they don't get to treat themselves. A lot of times, you know, before Danny could be Danny, you know, you have to worry about son, husband, whatever that looks like before you can think about yourself, because we give so much as a woman. Women are just amazing at what they do because you nurture, right? Yeah. So a lot of the nurturers don't get nurtured. And so if they sit
People
in my show,
assume you're okay.
People assume you're okay.
Because you show up so strong.
Show up very strong. They do. They think that, you know, just a time away, or like an hour, you know, if you're just getting a moment of silence, because sometimes the world is ever so changing and evolving, and whatever you're facing with in your everyday life when it comes to your career, when you walk in that door, you have, I hate to say it like that, you have another career to work on. It's your family. You know, you have to be the nurturer and the wife or whichever to your household. You don't get that platform to decompress at times. Now, there are some families and some husbands and all the things that allow that for their wife and so much, you know, as they should, but it's not done enough, I think, you know, and so when somebody sits in my chair, I just want them to just take that moment to, you know, unload whatever you have, like decompress, and then just feel great. Like, I just feel like if you're spending your money, you should 100% feel proud of what you're spending because you worked hard for that, you know? So I value ones who even invested in, you know, seeking a service from me because you didn't have to. It's like going to a cosmetic company and, you know, back in the day, MAC used to be just the only, you know, 1-2 brand that people would go to. Now there's so many beauty brands out there. So whenever I do contracts with them, because now it's a beautiful thing. What I wanted to do with MAC, I'm doing outside with Esther Artistry and Aesthetics, where they bring me in to teach their employees because the old way of how we were taught is not really being done as much anymore because COVID changed a lot of things. So it's almost like a quick fast and go, and they don't have like that stamp. And myself and other managers who had that hardcore, you know, learning experience and training, it's not as strong. And so now I'm able to go to different cosmetic brands and show them how they should be trained, how you should treat customers, you know, because now in beauty, you know, people either they know it all because they watch YouTube, or they're just an everyday mom who wants to know a quick one too. And so I'm able to outpour the knowledge and training that I've had in the past, and now that I've strengthened and been able to go around to share with them, like, you should make somebody feel great about what they're doing and what they're spending with you, because they don't have to. Like, they do not have to. There's so many people that do what I do, you know, maybe in not the same capacity, but they do what I do. So what would differentiate us from one to another is your service experience, standing by your policies and procedures, being able, you know, to feel comfortable, even if they say, hey, you know, I sought for a service. Because there are some people who seek for a service from me, and when I share my price, my standard base fee, I'm not for them, and I get that, you know. And even in my response saying, you know, well, thank you for inquiring anywhere, you know, in the future, if you do choose to, you know, service, you know, you choose a service for me, I'd love to service you. Normally the response, and every person who's responded with that was like, thank you for being so professional, because it can get ugly there. That's a tricky part, very tricky part.
I'm so glad, and I wish we had time to talk about all the things. That's another uncomfortable thing that people, you know, I'm finding it's hard to, when something doesn't work out, or if when you want to, you have to say no. Sometimes just in our industry, I don't know if you've experienced it on the sales side of things, because Chelsea does a little bit of sales stuff too, like getting ghosted. When really
I've been ghosted.
You've been ghosted? Yeah. Okay, but it's really, it's not that the person is a rude person. They just don't know how to comfortably say no, or you know, so people notice, like, when you say things professionally, like it didn't work out, but you still were comfortable in communicating that, it's noticed and it sets you apart for sure.
Yeah. Your faith is so beautiful. Like, your outward appearance is stunning. I really think you're the most stunning human being. But like, your heart is so beautiful, and I feel so encouraged as a Christian myself. Like, just from our conversation today, we're running short on time. Before we go, I just want to ask, like, what do you have to say to the young person working at the MAC counter right now who wants to do what you want to do? What advice, what encouragement would you give them?
It goes back to if they're in Cosmo School, aesthetics, somewhere in beauty, getting their license, or if they're working for a brand and they want to expand and be one of, a celebrity makeup artist one day, I would say just be consistent, be watchful, be mindful. In any industry, especially you think about restaurants, you think about business and customer service, you have to know how to serve. Mm-hmm. And part of that is my faith. Jesus, he served the ones who did not want to serve the others, and he was humbled at himself, when he was serving the people who were seeking hope, You have to know how to service somebody, be there for someone. And yes, not everybody is right in consumers and how they seek for service, because some are just plain out rude and disrespectful, and you don't have to take that. But if your verbiage is consistent, if your heart is pure, you've done all that you can, network. That one hey, you don't know who you're speaking to. That one hey could be that next jump, and part of that is that one hey for myself. When I was speaking to clients and how they referred me, I didn't know some of my clients who were connected to some high-profile clients that seek service from me from their agents. I didn't know that. I just treated everybody the same and had that integrity. So be consistent in your now, even if you know you want to get to that next step, because your calling is waiting for you. But you have to also understand, if you're not a good steward of your now, you can't think about your later, because your later is going to get bigger. A lot of times people see me like, Esther, you're so big now. Oh my gosh, you're the GOAT and all this. I'm like, yeah. With bigger expansion comes more responsibility. So my prayer now is like, Lord, please help me be able to manage that responsibility like I did back in the day, and be able to truly be the best steward of that and to expand me more, So I just think it's just to be consistent, be nice, be gentle, meet the customer where they're at, and all that will just transpire into something great if your heart's pure.
Where can people find you? Book you?
The website.
The website.
Not the DM.
Thank you. Not the DM. I repeat, not the text, not the DM, please, because I will redirect you so kindly. Wow. My website, spelling my name is real life, but it's www.estherlewisartistry.com. But my name is spelled ESTHERLOUIS, and then artistry. Hopefully you can pull that up. .com. And like I said, my website is solely a lookbook. It talks about me, who I am as a person, the services that I provide, because I provide a lot of services, but people to see. And it's really to put an inquiry request, not because you're going to see a calendar pricing. It is, I am a luxury brand. I take pride in that. I'm a luxury brand, and
it's not for everybody.
It's not for everybody. It's not for everybody, and I get that. But I also think you pay for what you want, and also that if you want the experience, not to say other people don't provide that, but I want to ensure that people understand that I went the right track.
Yeah.
I love what I do. I'm going to listen to your needs, and my sole purpose is to just polish that outward appearance of what you have internally.
This has been super fun. Thank you so
you
much
so much
for coming and hanging out with us.
I'm so happy. Thank you for having me.
I can't wait to get back in your chair.
Oh. And I can't wait to. Please, come on.
Yeah, I
know. Yes. Yeah, I want y'all to. Please. I love it.
This episode of Entrepreneurial Shades of Grey is brought to you by Honest Air, Plumbing, and Electric.